The jungle had its own voice at night, soft croaks, rustling branches, and the steady hum of insects that never seemed to stop. For Sergeant Leah Moreno, those sounds were as normal as the sound of her own breathing. She had led patrols along this stretch of the river dozens of times. Her boots knew the rhythm of the mud. Her ears knew how to separate nature from danger. Routine patrol, they called it. But she'd learned that routine was the most dangerous word in any soldier's dictionary. Her team that night was small, just 3 women. Leah in the lead, Corporal Anika Desai covering the left flank, and Private Sofia Alvarez bringing up the rear with the radio pack almost as heavy as she was. They were supposed to scout the riverbank, report on any crossings, and be back before dawn. On paper, simple. In practice, nothing ever was. "Quiet night," Sophia whispered, her voice barely louder than the buzzing mosquitoes around her helmet. Leah didn't answer right away. She lifted a hand, signaling stop, crouching to study the ground. Broken reeds near the riverbank. Water pooled strangely in footprints too wide to be theirs. She pressed her palm against the damp soil and felt the edges of a boot tread. Fresh, less than 3 hours old, and not friendly. Routine, she thought bitterly. Who writes these orders and thinks the enemy sticks to schedules? She motioned for the team to spread out, the shadows stretching thin under the pale light of the moon filtering through the jungle canopy. The river glistened like a silver blade, slow-moving, deceptive. Leah's gut tightened. Something was wrong. The silence wasn't natural anymore. Even the insects seemed to hush, as if holding their breath. Then came the first crack of gunfire. Not distant, not warning. A single round punched through the leaves inches from Anika's shoulder, spraying bark and dirt. The jungle erupted. Gunfire lit up the night in orange bursts, like lightning trapped beneath the trees. "Contact front," Leah shouted, her voice sharp but controlled. She dropped low, her rifle barking back in quick bursts. Anika rolled into cover behind a fallen log, returning fire with precise shots. Sophia scrambled with the radio pack, trying to duck while unstrapping the antenna. Rounds zipped overhead like angry hornets, the air filled with the acrid sting of gunpowder, the jungle's humid breath mixing with smoke. Leah's heart pounded, not with fear but with the clarity of survival. Ambush. Well planned. They'd been waiting. The enemy knew the patrol routes, knew where to set the trap. Leah counted the muzzle flashes, at least 10, maybe 12. They were outnumbered 4-1. Trapped against the river. No clean retreat. "Sophia, call it in." Leah barked. "We're under heavy fire. Sector 7. Request immediate support." Static crackled back. Then a voice. But not the one they wanted. The enemy had jammed the signal. Nothing but dead air and hissing. Sophia's eyes widened, fear flashing before discipline forced her to focus. "They're on the net, Sergeant. We can't raise command." Of course they were. Leah gritted her teeth. She had known patrols weren't routine. She had known something felt wrong. Now she had to make sure her women survived long enough to prove it. "Hold your fire, short bursts. Make 'em think there's more of us," Leah ordered, adjusting her aim to pick the brightest muzzle flash and silence it. Her shot cut through the chaos, and the return fire faltered from that direction. One down. Not enough. Anika called out over the crackling gunfire. "They're trying to push us toward the river. They want us trapped." Leah scanned the terrain. She saw it now, their kill box. Enemy rifles angled to drive them against the waterline where escape would be impossible. Her mind raced. 3 women, low ammo, no radio. A jungle full of enemies. She thought of her father's words from long ago. Routine is the comfort of the living. Ambush is the reality of the dead. Well, she wasn't dead yet. "Shift right. Use the underbrush for cover," she shouted, firing off 2 rounds to suppress. The women darted through the shadows, bullets stitching the trees where they'd just been. Sophia stumbled but kept moving, clutching the radio pack like it was her lifeline. They crashed into a patch of ferns, panting, hearts pounding. The jungle seemed to close in around them, thick with smoke and danger. Leah crouched low, scanning. Her rifle was warm, her magazine half-spent. "This isn't random," Leah said between breaths. "They knew we'd be here. They're hunting us." Anika wiped sweat from her brow, her eyes sharp even in the chaos. "So what's the plan?" Leah looked at her two soldiers, young but unflinching. She thought of their families back home, of how routine patrols meant nothing to the ones who never saw the risks. She thought of the promise she made when she took command, that she'd bring her people back. Her voice was steady. "The plan is simple. We fight like hell. We don't die here. And we make sure the enemy regrets ever thinking 3 women were easy prey." The ambush had begun, but so had the fight to survive. The firefight didn't let up. It only grew louder, hotter, closer. Enemy tracers slashed through the night, glowing lines that cut across the jungle canopy and hissed into the water. The river itself was alive now, rippling with impact splashes as though the bullets were trying to hurt them. Leah pressed her back to a moss-covered boulder, firing in bursts. Sweat ran into her eyes, stinging. She blinked it away, breathing through the adrenaline. Her magazine clicked empty. She slammed in another. She couldn't afford a single pause. Anika shifted positions, her rifle precise, deliberate. She was calm even under fire, her training shining through. But Leah could see the strain in her jaw, the tightness in her shoulders. No soldier was untouched by an ambush. You carried the fear in your muscles, in your bones, no matter how still your hand seemed. Sophia, crouched low with the radio, tried again. Static. Interference. A broken hiss that mocked them. "Sergeant, it's no good. They've blanketed the whole frequency." Leah nodded grimly. "Then it's just us." The enemy closed in, their movements careful but relentless. They thought they had the advantage. They did on paper. But paper didn't fight. People did. Leah's mind raced through options. They couldn't outrun the ambush. They'd be cut down in the open. They couldn't wait for backup. No one knew where they were. Which left only one choice. Fight harder. Fight smarter. Anika, mark their flanks. Count muzzle flashes. 1 at 10 o'clock. 2 at 12. 3 at 2 o'clock. More shifting left. Anika reported quickly. She was always sharp, always calculating. Leah smiled despite the chaos. That's why she trusted her. "Good. Then we break their rhythm." She pulled a flare from her pack, cracked it open, and tossed it toward the river. The sudden bloom of red light flared across the water, blinding those who'd been crouching in the dark. Gunfire sputtered as enemy eyes tried to adjust. Leah seized the moment. "Now, shift fire left," she barked. Their rifles thundered in unison. Muzzle flashes winked out as enemies dropped. Leah's pulse hammered, not from fear but from focus. Every shot mattered. Every second stretched into an eternity of sound and fury. But the enemy adapted fast. Grenades thumped into the dirt nearby, spraying shrapnel and mud. One tore through a tree trunk, showering them with splinters. Sophia yelped but kept low, shielding the radio. Leah's heart clenched. These kids didn't deserve this, but they had chosen it, just like she had. "Sergeant!" Anika shouted, pointing toward the riverbank. Shapes moved in the water, enemy soldiers crossing low, trying to flank them. Leah cursed under her breath. They were being encircled. Routine patrol? No. This was extermination. "Fall back to the ridge." Leah ordered, gesturing uphill. "We hold the high ground or we die here." The 3 women scrambled, firing and moving, every step a gamble. Bullets tore through branches. Dirt spat at their heels. The jungle roared with fire and fury. But above it all, Leah's voice carried, steady, commanding, unbroken. They weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for each other. And as they reached the ridge, hearts pounding, lungs burning, Leah knew the ambush hadn't just begun. It was about to get personal. The ridge wasn't much, just a hump of earth and rock rising above the thick curtain of trees. But to Leah Moreno and her 2 soldiers, it was everything. Higher ground meant sidelines. Sightlines meant survival. Up, up, move, Leah shouted, pushing Sophia forward by the shoulder straps of her radio pack. The young private's legs churned, stumbling on roots and rocks, but she climbed with the desperation of someone who knew a bullet was only seconds behind her. Enemy gunfire chased them, rounds snapping into the dirt at their heels. One cut so close to Anika's head that Leah swore she heard the bullet's whistle scrape past her ear. But the corporal didn't falter. She turned, dropped to one knee, and loosed 3 sharp bursts that silenced at least one pursuing rifle. They reached the crest of the ridge, hearts pounding, lungs burning. Leah threw herself down in the dirt, rifle leveled. Below, shadows of enemy fighters fanned out along the riverbank, their movements coordinated, confident. They thought the 3 women were prey caught in a trap. Leah's lips pressed tight. Not tonight. Ammo check, she barked. 3 mags left. Anika answered, reloading quickly. 2.5. Sophia said, her voice tight but steady. Leah checked her own. Barely 3 magazines. Not enough for what was coming. She forced calm into her voice. Make every round count. Short bursts only. Aim for leaders first. Take their command away. The enemy moved closer, their outlines clearer now in the moonlight. 10 at least, maybe more, spreading in a crescent. They'd soon try to climb the ridge. Leah's training screamed at her. This was no longer patrol duty. This was last stand territory. Her finger tightened on the trigger. Her first shot caught a figure at the edge of the line, dropping him before he could signal. Anika followed instantly, precision perfect, cutting another down. For a brief, glorious moment, the enemy's advance stuttered. Good hits. Keep pressure. Leah called. Gunfire roared. Tracers arced through the night. The ridge became a battleground of light and shadow. Dirt kicked up around them, branches shattered, and the acrid reek of gunpowder thickened the humid air. Then a grenade arced up toward them, rolling to a stop barely a meter from Sophia. Leah didn't think, she reacted. She kicked the grenade downhill with all her strength. It detonated mid-slope, shaking the ground, showering them with dirt, but sparing their lives. Sophia's breath came ragged. Sergeant, I thought. Don't think. Leah cut her off firmly, eyes still on her sights. Just fight. You're alive. That's all that matters. The enemy pressed harder, moving in waves. Leah felt the ridge shrinking under them, as if the jungle itself wanted to swallow them whole. Her rifle barrel grew hot, her shoulder sore from recoil, but she didn't stop. Every squeeze of the trigger was a promise, not one step more. Suddenly, through the chaos, Anika shouted, "They're circling left. They're trying to climb from the side." Leah shifted instantly, firing blind into the underbrush, where movement flickered. The enemy was smart, too smart. They weren't just charging. They were probing, looking for weakness. And 3 women on a ridge had plenty of weaknesses. Her mind raced. They couldn't stay pinned here forever. Ammo would run out. Reinforcements weren't coming. If they stayed, they'd be buried. But if they moved, they'd be slaughtered in the open. Her decision came sharp, painful. They'd have to make a break. She leaned into her team, shouting over the gunfire. "Listen to me. We can't hold here. We push north, deeper into the jungle. We move on my mark. Lay suppressive fire, and don't stop running." "Got it." Both women nodded, eyes fierce despite the fear. Leah gave them one last look. She saw more than soldiers. She saw courage, loyalty, and youth sharpened by fire. She thought of how the world outside would never know their names if they fell here. And she swore again she wouldn't let that happen. "On 3, she yelled. 1, 2, 3. The ridge exploded in gunfire as the 3 women unleashed everything they had left. Then they turned, sprinting into the dark belly of the jungle, the ambush howling behind them like wolves on the hunt. The fight wasn't over. It was only just beginning. The jungle swallowed them whole. Vines snatched at their gear. Roots threatened to trip their feet, and branches tore at their arms. But Leah didn't slow. Behind them, enemy shouts rang out. accompanied by the heavy crunch of boots giving chase. "Keep moving," Leah urged, her breath ragged. "Don't look back." Sophia stumbled, but Anika caught her, hauling her upright without missing a step. Together they pushed forward, every stride a rebellion against the inevitability of capture. Gunfire cracked through the night. Bullets thudded into trees around them, sending showers of bark into their faces. Leah swung her rifle backward, firing blindly, not to kill but to buy seconds. Seconds were precious. Seconds were life. They reached a shallow ravine, its bottom slick with mud and crawling with insects. Leah jumped first, landing hard, then turned to catch Sophia as she slid down. Anika followed, landing with her rifle still ready. "Here," Leah hissed, pulling them against the embankment. They crouched low, gasping for breath, listening. Enemy boots clattered above, voices barking orders in a language thick with anger. The enemy swept past, not realizing their prey had gone to ground. For a brief moment, silence. Sophia's voice trembled. "Sergeant, they'll find us eventually. What if we can't make it?" Leah grabbed her shoulder, steady and fierce. "Listen to me. You will make it. You hear me? Fear keeps you sharp, but doubt kills. Don't let it in." Sophia swallowed, nodded. She was young, but she was learning. They waited until the footsteps faded, then moved again, slower, quieter. The jungle was both shield and trap. Every rustle could be friend or foe. Every shadow a hiding place, or a grave. Hours seemed to stretch in minutes. Their bodies ached, their ammo was low, but their will burned hot. They weren't just escaping, they were dragging the fight with them, making the enemy bleed time and effort. Finally, as dawn's first pale light began to filter through the canopy, they reached a clearing. Leah froze at the edge. The air smelled of smoke. Across the clearing, half hidden under camouflage netting, was a temporary enemy camp. Crates, tents, radios, at least 2 sentries, rifles slung casually as they warmed their hands over a fire. Anika's eyes met Leah's. She whispered, "This isn't just a patrol. This is a staging ground. They're planning something bigger." Leah's chest tightened. She saw it now. The ambush hadn't been a chance encounter. It had been designed to test them, trap them, and conceal this camp from discovery. If they could take this information back, Command would have what it needed to strike first. But if they were caught, Leah's jaw set. "We can't walk away from this. We need proof." Sophia blinked. "Proof? How? We don't even have a working radio." Leah's eyes narrowed as she studied the camp. "Then we take it from them." The women crouched in the shadows, exhaustion forgotten as adrenaline surged again. They weren't just survivors anymore. They were hunters, about to turn the enemy's trap inside out. The jungle had teeth, and now so did they. The clearing looked deceptively calm. 2 sentries at the fire, smoke curling lazily upward, and crates stacked neatly under tarps. But Leah knew better. A camp like this meant more soldiers nearby, possibly sleeping or on patrol. Any mistake could bring the whole hornet's nest down on their heads. She motioned to Anika and Sophia, crouching low behind fallen log. "We move silent. No shots unless you have no choice. We're ghosts tonight." Sophia's face was pale, her lips pressed tight. She whispered, "Sergeant, what if they hear us?" Leah held her gaze, steady and calm. "Then we make sure they don't get the chance to warn anyone. Stay close. Watch my hands." Anika, as always, needed no reassurance. Her jaw was set, eyes scanning, every muscle coiled. She looked like she had been born for the darkness. Leah moved first, slipping from shadow to shadow, her body pressed tight to the earth. The jungle was thick with night sounds, chirps, rustles, distant calls, but to Leah's ears, every leaf crunch was an alarm bell. They reached the perimeter. A thin wire glinted faintly in the dawn light, a tripwire. Leah froze, her hand shooting up. Sophia nearly stumbled but stopped in time, breathing hard. With careful fingers, Leah traced the wire back to a small charge hidden under leaves. A simple alarm mine. One wrong step, and the camp would have known instantly. She eased the wire loose, deactivated the trap with practiced precision, and motioned them forward. The sentries laughed quietly by the fire, their rifles slung carelessly. They had no idea death was watching them from 10 paces away. Leah's hand gave the signal. Anika slid left, Sophia right. The three women moved like flowing water. Leah rose behind the first sentry, her knife flashing quick and merciless across his throat. Anika did the same with the second, covering his mouth to muffle the sound as he collapsed. The fire crackled, the jungle breathed, and two enemies lay still. Sophia's eyes were wide, shaken by the closeness of it, but Leah only put a finger to her lips. Silence saves lives. They dragged the bodies into the undergrowth, covering them with leaves. Then they turned their attention to the heart of the camp. Inside the largest tent, they found maps pinned to boards, crates marked with ammunition codes, and a radio set still humming faintly. Leah's heart pounded. This was it, the proof. She pulled a small camera from her vest pocket, the kind used for recon missions. Quietly, she snapped photo after photo of maps, supply labels, radio frequencies. Each click felt like victory, but also like a countdown to discovery. Anika rifled through the crates. They're stockpiling for an offensive. Enough ammo here to supply a battalion. They weren't planning to patrol. They were planning to invade. Sophia's voice was barely a whisper. Then we have to stop them. We can't just take pictures. We should destroy this. Leah hesitated. Sophia wasn't wrong. Destroying the camp would cripple the enemy's plans, but it would also bring every fighter in the area straight down on them. 3 women against an army. Her mind worked fast. Not yet. First we get this intel out. Then we hit them. She moved to the radio, adjusting the dials. Static crackled, then cleared faintly. She tried a secure frequency. Echo 3, this is Falcon. Copy. Over. Nothing. She tried again, adjusting, praying. Falcon to command. Priority report. Respond. At first, only static. Then faint. So faint she almost missed it, came a reply. Falcon, this is command. Reading you 5%. Say again. Relief nearly knocked her to her knees. Command, enemy staging camp located grid 259, by 431. Heavy munitions. Preparing offensive. Request extraction urgent. Static swallowed most of her words. She repeated them twice before the line cut. It was unclear if command had truly understood. But Leah had no more time to try. Voices outside, the enemy stirring. Boots moving. The camp was waking. She turned to her team. We got what we came for. Now we cripple this place. Anika's grin was fierce. Finally. Sophia swallowed hard, but she nodded. Let's do it. They planted charges quickly, moving between crates, fuel drums, and the radio tent. The soft click of arming switches was the drumbeat of their survival. By the time the first enemy soldier wandered back to the fire, scratching his head at the missing sentries, the women were already slipping back into the jungle. Leah carried the detonator tight in her fist. On my mark, she whispered. The soldiers shouted an alarm. Voices rose. Boots thundered. The camp stirred like a nest of hornets. Leah pressed the switch. The night erupted. The explosion was more than sound. It was a wave that rolled through the jungle, flattening brush, shaking the ground beneath their boots. Fire tore upward, consuming crates and tents, scattering debris like shrapnel stars into the dawn. Screams followed. Confusion. Orders barked in desperation. The enemy camp had turned into chaos. From their cover on the ridge, the 3 women watched as the firestorm consumed everything. Leah's face was hard, lit by orange flames. That's one offensive they won't launch. Anika laughed once, sharp and grim. Best wake-up call they've ever had. But Sophia trembled. The blast's reflection danced in her eyes, but her hands shook. She had never set explosives before. She had never watched dozens of men die in an instant. She whispered, "Sergeant, did we just—" Leah cut her off gently. "We saved lives. Ours. Our squads. Civilians who would have been hit if this offensive rolled forward. Don't forget that." Sophia nodded, but her face stayed pale. War had marked her tonight, the way it marked them all. The victory was short-lived. The camp may have been crippled, but survivors were already regrouping. Flashlights flicked across the jungle, voices shouting, dogs barking. The hunt was back on. "We move north," Leah ordered. "Stay low. Stay fast." They slipped into the underbrush, weaving between roots and vines, every step measured. Behind them, the jungle burned, smoke rising like a beacon to anyone within miles. For hours, they pushed deeper. Exhaustion clawed at them, but fear drove them harder. Every snapping twig felt like pursuit. Every breath felt stolen. Finally, at a narrow creek, Leah called a halt. They knelt by the water, filling canteens, splashing their faces. The jungle's night chorus surrounded them, frogs, insects, distant howls. But beneath it all was the steady thrum of adrenaline that refused to fade. Anika crouched beside Leah. "Command heard you?" Leah shook her head. "I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. We can't count on rescue. We moved toward extraction point anyway." Sophia whispered, "And if they're not there?" Leah's jaw tightened. "Then we keep moving until they are." Silence hung heavy for a moment. Then Anika smirked, trying to lighten the weight. Could be worse. Could be raining. Almost on cue, a drop splattered onto Sophia's cheek. Then another. Then the sky opened, pouring cold sheets of rain through the canopy. Anika groaned. "I had to say it." Leah almost laughed, but her eyes stayed sharp on the trees. Rain muffled footsteps, blurred trails. It was both blessing and curse. They huddled under ponchos, watching the jungle blur into shadows. Leah's thoughts drifted, back to the ambush, to the ridge, to the detonator in her hand. Every choice she had made weighed on her. Had she gambled their lives too freely? Or was this simply the cost of surviving a war no one back home would ever truly understand? The rain fell harder. Thunder rolled. Somewhere in the distance, faint and ominous, a dog barked again. The enemy wasn't done. The hunt wasn't over. And Leah knew, with cold certainty, that the most dangerous part of the night still lay ahead. The rain turned the jungle into a blur of dripping shadows. Water poured from the canopy in silver sheets, soaking everything. Boots sloshed in mud, rifles grew slick, and the riverbed swelled with rushing currents. But to Leah, the storm was both ally and enemy. It cloaked their retreat, but it also cloaked their pursuers. She raised a fist, halting Sophia and Anika in their tracks. The sound was faint, nearly lost beneath the rain, but her ears caught it. Voices, low and guttural, carried by the wind. The enemy was close, too close. Anika crouched beside her, whispering, "How many?" Leah tilted her head, straining. "At least 6. Maybe more. Hunting formation." Sophia's breath caught in her throat. Her hands tightened around her rifle until her knuckles turned white. "Sergeant, what do we do?" Leah's mind raced. A firefight in this storm would be suicide. They'd be outnumbered, pinned, and overwhelmed. No, survival meant vanishing. She gestured sharply toward a cluster of tangled roots, where the land sloped into a shallow ravine. They slid silently into the gully, mud slick beneath them, pressing flat against the earth. Rain cascaded off broad leaves overhead, masking their movements. Leah lay on her belly, face pressed to the muck, every sense straining. The voices grew louder. Boots squelched in mud. Flashlights stabbed through the storm, beams cutting erratically across the trees. Anika's hand rested lightly on her knife, her breathing steady. Sophia, on the other hand, trembled visibly, eyes wide. Leah reached over, squeezing Sophia's wrist, grounding her. She whispered against her ear, barely audible above the rain. "Breathe. Just breathe. You're invisible right now." They stayed frozen as the patrol passed, mere feet above them. One soldier's light swept dangerously close, glinting off a wet branch. Leah's pulse thundered. If the beam shifted just a few inches. But then the soldiers moved on, their voices fading into the storm. Only when silence returned did Leah exhale. The three of them remained pressed to the ground for several minutes more, unwilling to risk moving too soon. Finally, she whispered, "North. Extraction point is still 2 clicks away. We move." They pushed through mud and brush, progress agonizingly slow. The storm refused to let up, battering them with cold sheets of water. Their uniforms clung heavy, weapons felt like lead, and exhaustion gnawed at every step. Hours blurred into a miserable crawl until they reached the edge of a swollen river. Its current churned wild and dark, swollen with rainwater, branches and debris rushing downstream. Sophia gasped, "We can't cross that. It'll drag us under." Leah scanned the bank. The river was a barrier, but it was also cover. "We follow it. It'll mask our tracks. And if Command's listening, they'll expect us to approach extraction from the river." So they trudged along the bank, water splashing at their boots, lightning flashing overhead. Every crash of thunder felt like a war drum, every shadow a threat. Then came the dogs. The barking rose suddenly behind them, closer than before, cutting through the rain like a blade. The enemy had unleashed trackers. Panic rippled through Sophia's face, but Leah snapped sharply. "Into the river. Now!" Without hesitation, Anika plunged in, the current seizing her immediately. Leah shoved Sophia forward, then dove herself. Cold water swallowed them, dragging them downstream. The current was merciless. Leah fought to keep her rifle above water, her lungs burning as waves crashed over her face. Branches scraped her arms, stones bruised her legs. For a moment, she thought they'd all be swept away, scattered. But then Anika's hand caught hers, iron-strong even in the torrent. Together, they hauled toward a cluster of roots jutting from the far bank. With desperate effort, they clung, dragging Sophia up beside them. They collapsed in mud, gasping, the storm still raging overhead. The dogs barked faintly on the other side, but the river roared too loud for the enemy to track them across. For now, they were safe. Leah forced herself upright, chest heaving. She looked at her team, soaked, exhausted, battered, but alive. "We're close," she said, her voice raw. "Extraction's not far. One more push." Lightning split the sky, illuminating their faces. Sophia's was pale with fear, Anika's fierce with determination, and Leah's was set with grim resolve, because she knew the storm hadn't washed away the danger. It had only delayed it. The final test still lay ahead. Dawn bled gray over the jungle as the storm finally eased. Mist clung to the trees, steam rising from soaked earth. Leah led her squad along the final ridge, their bodies trembling with fatigue. Every step felt carved from sheer willpower. Then she saw it, the clearing below. A flat stretch of ground, churned with mud, where a rescue chopper could land. Smoke grenades lay tucked in her vest for this very signal. The extraction point. Relief surged through her veins, but it lasted only seconds. Movement in the trees. Figures. Too many. The enemy had beaten them here. A dozen soldiers fanned out across the clearing, rifles sweeping the jungle. A trap, perfectly laid. Leah's heart sank, but she didn't falter. She crouched low, pulling Anika and Sophia close. "We don't have time to wait. Command could be inbound. If we're not here to mark the LZ, they'll leave. And if they leave, we don't get another chance." Anika grinned fiercely. "Then we fight." Sophia's lips trembled. Against all of them, Leah locked eyes with her. Not to win, to survive long enough. She pulled out the smoke grenades, handing one to each woman. "When I give the signal, throw. Then fire. Make noise, make them scatter. We hold until the bird arrives, or until we can't anymore." They nodded, fear and fire both in their eyes. Leah rose slowly, peering over the ridge. The enemy was alert, but not expecting an attack from above. That was their advantage. Now, she hissed. 3 smoke grenades arced into the clearing, hissing thick plumes of red, green, and yellow. Confusion erupted. Shouts echoed as visibility vanished. Then the women opened fire. Their rifles cracked sharp and fierce, cutting through the mist. Enemies fell, others scrambled blindly. Anika's shots were brutal, precise. Sophia fired wildly at first, but then steadied, her fear sharpening into deadly focus. Leah moved between them, firing, shouting, keeping them anchored. She felt rounds whip past, bark splinter near her face. Pain burned across her arm where a bullet grazed, but she didn't stop. Minutes stretched like eternity. The jungle was chaos, smoke, gunfire screams. And then, above the storm's dying roar, came the thump-thump-thump of rotor blades. The rescue bird. Leah's heart leapt. She grabbed her last smoke, pulling the pin and hurling it high. Red trail arced through the mist, marking the landing zone. The chopper descended, its machine gun opening fire, shredding through enemy lines. Soldiers scattered, diving for cover. The ground trembled with its arrival. "Go!" Leah shouted, dragging Sophia toward the clearing. Anika covered their retreat, firing relentlessly. They sprinted through mud and smoke, lungs burning, bullets snapping. The chopper's side door yawned open, crew shouting, hands reaching. Anika was last, diving aboard as Leah shoved Sophia inside. The bird lifted almost instantly, skimming above the treetops. Below, the enemy scattered, firing helplessly into the sky as the jungle shrank away. Inside the chopper, the 3 women collapsed against the metal floor, drenched, bloodied, shaking. For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, they let themselves breathe. Sophia sobbed quietly, clutching Leah's sleeve. Anika leaned back, eyes closed, her grin exhausted but unbroken. Leah stared out the open door as the jungle receded. The ambush, the camp, the firestorm, the river, the last stand. It all blurred together. They had survived. Barely. And she knew, as the chopper carried them toward safety, that the war would demand more. More nights like this. More battles. More choices that would scar them forever. But for now, survival was enough. For now, they had lived to fight another day.